One of my main lessons from combat is that people will do what they need to do, no matter how dangerous the situation is, if you're all in it together. If your motivation is to be part of a successful team, and you're gonna look out for your buddy, and they're gonna look out for you, you're gonna do what you need to do, no matter what the situation is. Whether in combat or in the corporate world, one truth holds up. Leadership matters most when things go wrong. Stop expecting calm and start preparing for challenge. Expecting smooth will leave you unprepared. You'll overlook real probabilities. You'll ignore reality. So it's important for us to train our teams to expect challenge and not perfection. Calmness should signal to the team that you're in control of yourself, your emotions, and of the words that you're using, and thus the situation that you are in with the team. Say that when people are stressed, they unconsciously scan the leader's face for visible cues. In other words, your face communicates before your mouth even opens to say anything. Body language or other nonverbal clues. So the more expressive a leader is, the more emotionally reactive the group is going to be. And that vague problems cause fear. And so we as leaders, we define the problem in clear, solvable terms. And the lesson for you and I is that when people are in a situation like that, if it's your people, you can tend to think that because they're not acting, it's laziness, but it might just be a psychological response, learned helplessness. But it might be a small decision, it might be based on very limited information, and you may not be comfortable making it. But if people are waiting for you to decide, every second that goes by, you're losing credibility in their eyes. Depends for you, the lesson is, how tight is your team? How dedicated are people to each other? Focus on that on a daily basis. Bring that team together, and they'll do anything for each other. Hi, I'm Mike Targus, founder of Center Desk, retired Marine Corps officer, and leadership coach. I served 21 years in the Marine Corps, to include a tour as a battalion executive officer, or XO, in Ramadi, Iraq in 2004, and as a battalion commander in Kajaki, Afghanistan in 2012. Since retiring from active duty in 2013, I've worked in project management, sales, and engineering as an individual contributor, manager, and director. Whether in combat or in the corporate world, one truth holds up. Leadership matters most when things go wrong. In both my combat deployments, we didn't expect quiet. We expected complexity, and that expectation gave us the power to deal with those situations. And that's what I want to share today. One powerful mindset shift that'll change the way you lead through chaos, which is what everybody needs from you. Stop expecting calm and start preparing for challenge. Let's break that down. If we're honest, we look forward to smooth execution. In many ways, that's a success in and of itself. We're happiest when things go according to plan, and oftentimes they do. But that's different from categorizing chaotic or uncertain situations as undesirable or atypical. Actually, those are the reasons we as leaders exist. Leadership isn't just about planning and scheduling and telling people what to do. It's about guiding people, making the best use of time, achieving quality results, and progressing down the path of our growth plan. And it's especially important when things are hard. People need direction, and it's going to be difficult. You're going to have to give people guidance to maintain that direction. Expecting smooth will leave you unprepared. You'll overlook real probabilities. You'll ignore reality. So it's important for us to train our teams to expect challenge and not perfection. Good leaders normalize and are comfortable operating amidst friction. It means growth. In Iraq, we had a constant indirect fire, mostly mortars. And this did cause us to take some precautions, but what it didn't cause us to do was hide behind walls or in bunkers all day. Roadside bombs, IEDs, another serious threat. But the Marines were out there patrolling and doing their jobs every day. That was the mission, that was what they trained for, and that's what they were expected to do. In project management or engineering, it would be easy to eliminate risk from a project if you didn't have to deliver scope within budget and according to a schedule set by the client. But combine those three elements together, and those create situations that leaders have to deal with. Your vendor delays shipment by a month? No problem, just wait another month. If it weren't for the fact that your customer needs the equipment. On a human psychological level, people dislike uncertainty, and it actually activates a part of the brain called the amygdala, which is our fear center, and that is our fight or flight response, our survival mechanism. But what leaders do when they define an environment, when they train their people to expect the unexpected, is they're actually preparing people to deal with that uncertainty so that the fear center or the fight or flight response doesn't kick in. In fact, you can train your people to the point where another part of their brain, the prefrontal cortex, takes over. And that's the part of the brain that helps us make rational, fact-based decisions. These are things that leaders do for their people. The next thing a leader must understand is that your team mirrors your emotional state. This is referred to as emotional contagion. One of the pioneers in this area, Dr. Elaine Hatfield from the University of Hawaii, wrote a book called Emotional Contagion, published in 1994. And she says that people catch or mimic the emotions of others, especially if someone is in a leadership or authority position. This a lot of times occurs unconsciously when they notice facial expressions, body language, or other nonverbal clues. So the more expressive a leader is, the more emotionally reactive the group is going to be. And that could be positive or that could be negative. It seems easy enough to do, but when your real focus is yourself and not the success of the group, and you get bad news, you got to be aware of that reaction that you're going to have. People are going to pick up on it, and they'll actually, by your nerves, you'll make them nervous. Rather, if you're solely focused on the success of the team, more likely than not, you're going to respond in a way that's going to encourage people or calm them down. In Afghanistan, as a battalion commander, I'd be in the Combat Operations Center, and we'd be watching TV feeds from drones overhead, and we'd be watching suspected Taliban moving through villages or near our guys. And we were required to fight with fairly restrictive rules of engagement, or ROE at that time, 2012. And there were 3 of us in the battalion with the authority to strike with indirect or supporting arms fires. I was one of them. And in those situations, I not only had to make the decision to strike a target or not, but I also had to convey a feeling of confidence and calm to the team that was around me. I've seen it both ways in situations like that where leaders are excitable. They end up scaring their people. The people shut down. They don't contribute. And in combat, there's enough things to be scared about. You don't need to be afraid of your own leaders. Very important to project calm and confidence in those situations. Or in a corporate setting, you might have an unrealistic revenue target, or at least unrealistic in your own mind. And even if it is, though, you can't stand up in front of the group and say, there's no way we can do this. At that point, you'll have 0 chance. You have to reassure the team that you know what you're doing and that you know and are confident in their ability to do the same. And if you're confident, then they'll also feel like they can rely on you when the going gets tough. Something I see a lot of inexperienced leaders thinking and then following through with is that calmness is a sign of laziness, and it's not. Calmness should signal to the team that you're in control of yourself, your emotions, and of the words that you're using, and thus the situation that you are in with the team. Your reaction to situations sets the tone. Dr. Paul Ekman is another expert in this area, actually goes as far as to say that when people are stressed, they unconsciously scan the leader's face for visible cues. And his research shows that your facial expressions are universal indicators of your emotional state. So the look on your face can actually trigger anxiety. Conversely, if the leader maintains a calm, focused expression, you can inspire confidence. In other words, your face communicates before your mouth even opens to say anything. So shift out of this belief that smooth sailing indicates you're doing a good job as leader, and shift into your purpose is to lead the team through those troubled times. And expect that and believe it, because if you believe it, then that's going to show in your expressions. Psychological safety, people need to be assured that they can perform, that they can try new things, and they can even fail, and it's going to be okay. And this is not lowering the expectations for your people. It's assuring them that they can do what's needed to get the job done in uncertainty. And you as the leader, you understand that it needs to be done and you're going to take care of them. In the Marine Corps, and this is one of the things that I've found that is fairly misunderstood about the military. On one hand, when you join the Marine Corps, you go to boot camp and you're told to keep your mouth shut and do what you're told. But when you get into a combat environment, it's critical that even the most junior Marines have the confidence and feel that they can contribute by telling the leaders what they see on the battlefield. Only this type of decentralized intelligence collection, if you're walking down the street and your people are not telling you what they see around the corner, you're not going to survive. When you're leading people in the corporate world, it's got to be the same thing. People have to feel comfortable bringing you the bad news. In fact, that's what you should tell them, is you want to hear the bad news. You're glad when things go well, but you want to hear the bad news so that you can make the right decisions. And when they bring it to you, you can't shoot the messenger. And to tie those last couple concepts together, asking for that real information, asking for people to take chances, to try to do things that need to be done. Consider the expression on your face when you're asking them to do that. Vague problems cause fear. In the Marine Corps, we had this expression that the enemy is not omnipresent. So it's easy to assume that there's somebody around every corner, they're watching you all the time, and they have unlimited ammunition and numbers, but that's never the case. So you as a leader, when you're facing an uncertain situation, you have to be specific about the risks that you're facing. What is the worst possible exposure or worst possible outcome that a situation can bring to your team? Talk about it. The way the Marine Corps plans is most likely course of action and most dangerous course of action from the enemy. While it's good to know the most dangerous course of action, what you really are going to focus on is what most likely is going to happen. So your people need to hear you talk like that, what you think the most likely outcome is going to be. Leaders must realize the power of doing this, the power of providing clarity, because this is the only way you're going to turn paralysis into action. And it's not automatic. The leaders got to start this. They have to clarify and initiate action. In Ramadi, the roadside bomb or the improvised explosive device threat, or IED, was every day, multiple times a day. And you might wonder how guys could get themselves to walk down a street when they know that this threat is out there. But the reason they did it is because that's what the mission required, and their leaders were out there with them, out front, sharing the hardships, but also assuring them that they were trained and that we had the resources to support them if they did encounter one. And it didn't always work out. We lost guys from IEDs, but the leaders made sure that the mission was accomplished, that they were out there every day despite that danger. And that's the same kind of leadership we're talking about in the corporate environment, just different details. I experienced something like this week at work where we had a customer that was asking for information. It just didn't seem possible that we could pull the data in a way that would satisfy the requirement. But what we did is we took a step back, quantified the requirement, put ourselves in their shoes and said, well, what are they really asking us to provide? And you answer that question the best you can. What you do in that process is you're defining the problem and figuring out the best ways to deal with it, and then using the tools at your disposal to get that answer to them. So we as leaders, we define the problem in clear, solvable terms. And as they say in the Marine Corps, the essential thing is action. Actually, this is Hans von Secht. Action kills anxiety, but waiting around breeds doubt. Another way of looking at it is start small, but just get started on anything. Dr. Martin Seligman, former president of the American Psychological Association, says it this way: action equals control equals confidence. He did a lot of work on what's called learned helplessness as well. It's when people do not feel like there's a possibility of winning or having a positive outcome, they're going to give up. When they have no control, no solution exists. And the lesson for you and I is that when people are in a situation like that, if it's your people, you can tend to think that because they're not acting, it's laziness, but it might just be a psychological response, learned helplessness. But the good news, as he says, is optimism can be learned. We help our people reframe problems, put certainty to it, and we're not failing, we're learning. And it's always important to show the light at the end of the tunnel that the problem is not going to last forever and that you're going to be there with them through it as you solve it together. Remember a time in Afghanistan, we were going to conduct an operation to clear an area. And the day before the operation, the plan was just in pretty bad shape. But the option that I had was to cancel the operation, and we didn't do that. What we did is we got everybody around the map, and we sorted out the details one by one until all of the problems that we noticed in the plan were solved. And I remember, as I think back about that situation, if I had just canceled the operation, what else would I cancel? What else would I not do? So you got to take action. Always lean forward. Always solve the problem. Get the mission done, no matter the cost. Don't wait for the perfect solution. Initiate action and work through it. So what combat lessons can you take back to use with your team? You have to anticipate thinking, moving, operating under pressure. Smooth is not realistic. And in addition to being surrounded by chaotic situations, you as a leader, you got to realize that people are looking to you to make decisions. It might be a small decision. It might be based on very limited information, and you may not be comfortable making it. But if people are waiting for you to decide, every second that goes by, you're losing credibility in their eyes. And one of the ways I like to explain that to people is you're not playing it safe by not making a decision or waiting for somebody else to do it. You're actually moving backwards. Playing it safe is not safe at all. One of my main lessons from combat is that people will do what they need to do, no matter how dangerous the situation is, if you're all in it together. If your motivation is to be part of a successful team and you're going to look out for your buddy and they're going to look out for you, you're going to do what you need to do, no matter what the situation is. Now, I also saw people who were focused on themselves, and it was much harder for them to do that. And in some cases, they didn't do it. But that's very rare. And that depends for you. The lesson is, how tight is your team? How dedicated are people to each other? Focus on that on a daily basis. Bring that team together, and they'll do anything for each other. So to wrap up, lead through uncertainty like a Marine. Be prepared for uncertainty. Initiate action. Have a bias for action. Expect the unpredictable. The unpredictable is the norm. It's not smooth sailing. It's not smooth execution. Unpredictable is a norm. That's why you're there as the leader. Use your position to support your people, to unlock resources that they need. Be out front, be visible, set the example. Let them know everything's going to be good. Be aware of your facial expressions. People are going to mimic the expression on your face. And if you think the situation's hopeless, it's showing on your face. And lastly, leadership isn't about avoiding difficulty, it's about dealing with it and having the presence, clarity, and courage to set a great example for your people. If this resonated with you, hit subscribe, share this with a leader that needs it. Visit my website, www.center-desk.com. Get a hold of me anytime, and remember, leadership isn't optional when things get hard. It's why you exist.